My students will be like, when did you know you want to be a professor? And I'm like, I didn't and I don't.
If you order tea from a place that doesn't care about tea, you might get crappy tea. That is possible.
Okay.
However,
you got to go to like a place that has good tea.
A lot of places have decent tea. Here's the other trick, and you don't ever have to do this, but you're certainly welcome to. You have my cell phone number. You can just text me and be like, hey, here's the picture of the menu. What do I want?
He becomes my tea guy.
Can I tell you?
Will you remember what this was?
I know what it is. Okay. It's Mariage Freres, and if you go to a nice enough place.
Will you text it to me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's as great a time as any to tell for the people listening at home. For the Steepers at home, we are drinking Mariage Freres Marco Polo. It is a phenomenal
I'm loving it.
Black tea.
I'm loving it.
And I'm a
coffee gal.
You're hearing it from a non-tea drinker.
And I'm a true, like, I get a migraine if I don't have coffee. I'm a coffee. I'm addicted to the caffeine.
I like when you stare down the barrel. I'm addicted to the caffeine.
Can these people see me?
Yeah.
Everyone at home, I'm addicted. I'm mentally ill.
That's a separate topic.
No, and not that people who are addicts are mentally ill. Okay, cut that part out.
Yeah, cut it out. Cut it. But no, this is amazing. For those steeping at home, just so you know, not typical of a black tea. You're going to steep this for a little longer. So it's going to be around 200 to 212 in 5 minutes.
Why does this one get steeped longer? What's the tea science
It is the
that?
way, so this particular tea, the way that it's made, they recommend a longer steep time. Oftentimes people think when you steep longer, it tastes better. But sometimes, for example, if you oversteep.
Does it make it stronger?
If it's caffeinated,
okay.
yes.
Okay.
If you oversteep something like a green, it becomes more bitter the longer you steep. With a black one, it can become a little more bitter, but it also will definitely be stronger in caffeine content.
About to ask a question that is so stupid that it might make you rethink even having had me on this podcast.
I think we just cut your episode now.
What is steeping?
No, that's not. Why is that stupid?
Heating?
No.
Putting in water.
Yep. Okay. That's what you're doing. You're submerging your tea into hot water.
I was using my context clues.
You're great. But a lot of times what you're doing, so we'll go with a green tea, for example, because I was just talking about that.
Good.
It's opening up the leaves and getting the aromatics out of the leaves into the water. That's all it is. I want to go back to something we were just talking about.
Yes, please.
I made a comment. I proudly said I'm in therapy, and you said that you love therapy. Do you love therapy hearing that other people are doing it, or do you love doing it?
All of it. I mean, I love my therapist, Dr. Barbara. Been with her for a long time.
You call her by her first name.
Dr. Barbara.
Oh, should I
made the mistake of recommending her to Megan Gailey, friend of the pod.
Love Megan Gailey.
And now I'm in such competition with Megan, you know, because Megan will be like, Dr. Barbara sent me a baby gift. And I'm like, she did?
You don't even have a baby and you're like, where's mine?
Exactly. And I always ask Dr. Barbara who her favorite client is. And I will text Megan and just be like, what's the longest that Dr. Barbara has stared at you without saying anything? Because sometimes Dr. Barbara, and I asked Dr. Barbara, I was like, what's the longest you've sat there staring at a client and not said anything? And she said for a whole session once. We just sat there silently. And then Megan, I don't think she would mind me saying this, said she once talked through the whole session and didn't let Barbara say one word. And I was like,
that tracks.
Love.
That tracks.
Yeah, no, she's so good. I think I'd had one bad therapist before, not like damaging, but just like I didn't know anything about therapy. And this woman she gave me a Playmobil stop sign to stop negative thinking.
No.
And then 2 weeks later gave it to me again. Like had forgotten that she had given it to me. She was an elderly woman. She also had me do these dopey like visualization things that were so dopey. She had a British accent and she would be like, lay down. It's my bad British accent.
I like it.
This was at a time when I was running the show with Lynn Molly. Have you had her on the pod?
Can I tell you something? We were supposed to have Lynn Molly on last week. Timing didn't work. We're having Lynn Molly. Everyone is listening.
Friend of the pod.
Lynn Molly is on this season. We're in season 2. She will be on the season. We couldn't get her on last week.
So we ran this backyard show in a friend's backyard.
Wait, was this Wolf Den?
Yeah. It was like 30 people, you know. It was very small. And I was telling this therapist, I'm not going to say this therapist's name because I'm, even though, again, I would say doctor first name.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Okay, Dr. Helen. There.
Yeah. All right, everyone heard it. Go tweet at Dr. Helen.
So she would have me lay down and then, she was like asking me, I was like, I'm stressed that my show goes well, whatever. much newer to stand up at that time before
Yeah.
I was jaded.
Before
And-
you were rags to riches story. Yeah.
I don't know about that. So anyway, she had me close my eyes and she goes, "Okay, you're at your show." It was in a neighborhood, tiny neighborhood in Silver Lake. She goes, "There are 30,000 people there." And I was like, this is so stressful. Why would there be 30,000 people? The fire department would be called.
Yeah. Where are they all going to sit?
Where are they going to sit? Like, why could, and then everything was like that. I was stressed about, like, I was trying to, I'm a writer. I was trying to write a book at that time.
yeah.
And she was like, "You're on the beach. You're holding your book. Oprah is there. Oprah walks up to you and says, 'I want that book for my book club.'" I was like, what is going on? And Oprah's book club wasn't even
So you're in the backyard
around.
and you're also on the beach.
These are two separate
Oh.
visualization techniques. Yeah, they didn't all. She was so bad.
I don't
All
know
this to say, I think when you finally get a good therapist, you're like, oh, this is how it can be. Like, this is how it can feel.
Does Barbara, or excuse me, does Dr. Barbara, I don't want
Thank
to call her Barbara. Thank you. Does Dr. Barbara accept insurance?
I used to be on a better insurance when I was employed by
Dr.
USC.
Chris does not accept insurance.
Now I'm adjunct. I pay for my own insurance. When she did accept mine, it wasn't fully. It would like shave off a little. But I only see her every other week, and I think that's good because I like save up what I want to say. We've been together for a while, and one of my big problems is like avoidance.
Sure.
And so anytime we would get close to me being really vulnerable and really honest, I would stop coming. Like I would sort of like ghost.
Oh, wow.
And part of that was I'd be like, I can't afford it right now. But it also was just like, I was scared.
Yeah.
And something through the pandemic, she's been with me through a lot of breakups. And then through the pandemic, finally something happened where I just started being as honest as I've ever been with anyone, like with a therapist for sure, or anyone. And in many ways, I feel like she like saved my life, I mean, my life wasn't ever threatened, but the feeling of, and I'm much more anxious than depressed. I'm not really a depressed person.
We're the same. Yeah.
Jews.
Yep.
But the feeling of finally saying something to someone that you have never said to anyone and just being like able to and safe and witnessed. I just think I can't thank Dr. Barbara enough. My students had to write a letter of gratitude to someone in their life. It's like a second grade assignment, but
I like it.
It was really moving to me to read all their letters of gratitude, and someone wrote to their therapist. And I was like, fuck, I got to write a letter of gratitude to Dr. Barbara.
You should.
Yeah. I told her that. I was like, I got to write you a letter of gratitude.
Yeah. I love that. I think I started seeing my therapist because Jess and I had gotten in a really, or Jess and my girlfriend, Jess and I got in a really, really bad car accident. And
I'm sorry to hear that. When did that happen?
April of last year, April 30th.
gosh.
I wasn't doing comedy. I couldn't really walk for a little while.
my
I wasn't doing
gosh.
comedy for a while. Jess was pretty hurt too. And I just wasn't doing stuff, but I was suffering from just really significant PTSD from the accident and all this kind of stuff. And it was really interesting to have start seeing Dr. Chris, because what ended up happening was I would say something to him and I would go, I've never said that to anyone before. And,
Yeah, same.
And he would look at me and go, how does it feel now that you have? And I was like, scary. And he goes, sure. But let me ask you a question. Manageable? Like, can we sit with the scariness, but know that it's now safe with me too? That now it's safe with both of us. And I was like, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
And he's like, when you leave here, I want you to think about the fact that like when a lot of this scary stuff is in your head, now you know, oh, well, you don't have to worry because like I have it too.
Oh, that's so
And I was
sweet.
like, I understand that. Like I'm a very easy cry. I
me
cry
too.
all the time.
And I think that was also part of the being vulnerable. Is now I cry through the entire session, every session.
I love.
I'm just such a now. And before it took me a long time to do that.
I will cry.
But she will push back on me. I don't think of her as confrontational, but she will. She doesn't let me get out of things easily.
I'm nervous now because I don't feel like Dr. Chris pushes back on me.
Interesting.
Should he? I don't know.
I don't know. I think if he's helping you, he's helping you. You know.
How does one understand whether or not something is helping or not in that context?
Does it make your life? Does it feel easier moving through your life?
I have a trusted outlet now that I didn't have before.
Yeah. Okay.
So then I guess that's the game.
Yeah, I think what we want is for a therapist to fix all our problems, and they can't do that. But can they like make it easier to move through the world? You know?
Yeah, I think that I used to treat stand-up as therapy, which is not healthy at all.
Meaning, in what way?
I would be very okay. I'll give you a really good example.
Mhm.
Okay, I have a joke that I say on stage where I talk about the fact that my first kiss was with a 5'10" Jamaican girl named Natasha. And the whole premise of the joke is that she just says that it was her first kiss too. And then she told all her friends, I kissed like a white boy. And the joke is like, how white must I kiss that it was her first kiss too? And she still knew. Like
Yeah, that's funny. I never heard that.
yeah, it's fun. But here's the other piece of the puzzle that I
Mhm.
don't say on stage.
Mhm.
The part that I don't say on stage is that after I had my first kiss with Natasha, I told someone that I loved and trusted, and they said, "You wasted your first kiss on a black girl?"
Oh my god.
Yeah, and that made me. I felt like
And
I
you
didn't.
grew up in New York?
Yeah,
This feels like something that happens in No Offense.
yeah. You could, yeah. I love how you didn't say it. It happens in no offense, and then you're
Arkansas, Alabama. I
Yep,
don't know.
yep.
Places I've never been because I feel like they've never seen a Jew before.
right. That's why I don't go there. But someone had said that, and it really hurt me, and it made me feel a lot of shame and embarrassment, and I didn't know why because I hadn't felt it before.
And probably like fear, just, about being around that kind of like bigotry, even though it wasn't towards you. It was,
Yeah, it was just like I felt all these different kinds of things. And I kept telling that joke on stage, being like, oh, this is kind of me dealing with it. I've made it funny. And now it's fine. But I wasn't talking about the other part of it. I never told that other part of the story. And finally, being in therapy was a really nice way where I was like, oh, that wasn't therapy. This is.
right.
Being able to be in the room and say the part that I can't say on stage because I can't make that funny on stage.
Right.
And I don't know that I want to.
Right.
So I think like I used it in my head. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna like share these stories and like spin them in a fun way, and like this is my therapy. And then it was a really nice realization to be like, hey, I can still do that, but like being able to be in the room and say it down the barrel, like that's what I need.
Totally. And I mean, everybody has a different outlook on what stand up should be. And I think people's outlooks change the longer they do stand up. And,
Yeah.
but yeah, mine thing is always like, I want to be funny. So
Yeah.
yeah, there are some people who are just like, I just had to say that. Like, that was for me. And it's like crickets. And they're like, that's okay. I'm like, I have a real allergy to bombing. I'm like, I gotta be funny.
Oh, geez, man.
I will say I said that thing about how I hate bombing, but I am trying to be looser about like being vulnerable on stage and how do I make it funny.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you? I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot. Are you talking about anything on stage right now where you're like, oh, this makes me nervous?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to retell any jokes.
You don't have to poach jokes here, but I mean, like,
or I think I'm thinking more of like, I'm a writer.
yeah,
I got a PhD in literature and creative writing.
that is such a stunning fact. But yeah,
So thank you. But
we're gonna get into that in a second. But yeah. How did you sell a book? Like, I want to get to the very beginning of this. You are an incredibly
Well,
talented.
it's not going to be that. And it's mostly my agents were like, we can't sell your collection of short stories because people don't buy short stories. I had a collection that I wanted to sell.
That's amazing. I like short stories.
Yeah, comedians like them, some literary people like them, but I can tell you just from running these book clubs, I cannot get these women to read a collection of short stories. They
Flannery
just
O'Connor
don't.
is just no one to them.
They just want. They don't. It doesn't appeal to them.
Okay. Fine.
And it doesn't appeal to most of the reading public. It was my ambition at some point to write a novel. So my agents were like, it's never going to feel like the right time. Sit down and begin one, and we'll try to sell it. I have good agents too, I should say.
Okay.
Molly Glick and Anthony Matero at CAA are my book agents.
Love it. Go team. Molly, Anthony, we love you.
And yeah, please put this out. I'm sorry that I've not responded to you guys. I am writing it. I'm very slow. I'm writing it more like I write a short story, which is to say every time I sit down, I read everything I've written before.
I do that.
And so it makes the going really slowly. However, I feel much better than I did about the first draft that I like shat out.
Yeah, it's a vomit draft.
Oh, and that draft, I mean, someone showed up with a gun. Like, who knows what I was writing, So hopefully when I get to the end of this second draft, it'll be better. It'll be better.
Are we allowed? Is it inappropriate for me to ask kind of like broad strokes what it's about?
I don't want to talk about what it's about.
We don't have to.
Partly because I don't know yet. I'm
Okay, lovely.
watching it. But if you have your phone, if you look on my Twitter, it has the publishing announcement there at the top. And my editors and agents wrote what they think it's about. And I
you're
literally read it and was like, is this what it's about? Yeah. I was like, okay.
How is it a completely different brain to write a book versus writing jokes? It's got to be like, or do you feel like you can apply some lessons you've learned from writing comedy to the book, or vice versa?
That's such a good question. I think
I'm okay.
everything's grist for the mill.
Yeah.
Is it gristle for the mill or grist for the grist?
For the mill, yeah.
I knew gristle couldn't be right. Yeah, it's all.
It'd be a much dirtier expression.
Every now and then I'll say in a joke a line from a Lori Moore short story I love. And I don't give her credit in the joke, but she says a character has grown up in the long shadow of her father's neglect. And then I talk about women who are obsessed with cum and like giving blowjobs. And I'm like, did you grow up in the long shadow of your father's neglect? It's like stuff like that I think, ends up. One of my characters is a stand-up comedian.
Love. And her name is Shmamie.
No. It's the characters who are me are never who people think when they're reading it, or every character's you, and every character's not you,
It's so funny. I did a web series back in the day, and everyone who watched it was just like, oh my God, I love. And the character, it was about two exes named Ben and Lena, and everyone's like, oh my God, like you were like so Ben, and I was like, actually, I'm Lena. Lena is the one based on me.
Well, and the reading public is just not the reading public. I shouldn't generalize. People are not used to fiction anymore. It's very strange. I think my
favorite thing,
because they read so many like Medium articles and essays, or what is my students call short stories articles. It is so odd. They'll be like, I liked the article from the New Yorker, and I'll go, it's a short story. And then the way they talk about it is they'll be like, why was he so mean? Like he's a real person. And I'll say, well, it's a character. It's just a very weird. So when people read my fiction, they're always like this. They want to think that it was about you for whatever reason. And I hate essay. I hate memoir. I only want to make it up. I want to hide from myself.
Yeah.
Something I'm talking about in therapy. And
stand-up
is as close as I get to talking about myself. And of course, that is a persona in whatever way.
I mean, I think everyone's is
a persona. Yeah, and what I'm getting as close to possible is being myself on stage without being unfunny.
Yeah, I think I remember the way. So Jess saw you perform, and she really liked you. And she goes, what was the name of the girl?
Great taste.
Yeah, apparently. She goes, well, definitely in Partners. She said,
that's what I meant.
Me too. She said, she goes, who is the really smart woman who talked about Tiny Cum Man? And I go, oh, that's really, she's hitting the nexus. I was like,
thank you.
She understands that you're incredibly smart, and also remembered very clearly one of your jokes that is, I wouldn't say the antithesis of like brainy, but like
filthy. It's about cum.
It's about cum, and like,
but in a literary way. That's what I'm going for. So I thank her.
I thought that was so cool because essentially it was like it fully recognizes. She could tell from just the way that you communicate that there's so much going on in your head. There's a lot of really smart cranks moving, and also, you don't take yourself so seriously that you can't make a joke about cum. Like, that's funny.
Well, that's so nice. I mean, I thank her. I'm going to have to thank her.
Yeah. I love how you looked up. You're like, wait, she's everywhere. She's with us here today.
What I hate talking about with comedians is their careers.
Oh, I don't really care.
I'm just like, who cares? But I'd love to know about, like, are your parents married? What's your relationship like?
Well,
are you friends with your siblings?
So I actually want to chase that down a little bit because you asked if my parents were married. Is that because when I said I want to talk things out that you were like, oh, if your parents were divorced, then that's maybe why you'd want to talk things out?
No. I just think our parents' marriages have a big impact on... what we've seen has a big impact on how we move through the world.
I actually think that's as good a time as any because it'll apply in a minute to go to our first segment. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
It's called the Newly Friend Game. It's like the Newlywed Game, but we're friends.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a question. You are going to, don't answer it out loud. You're going to write down your answer.
Okay.
I'm going to try and write down the same answer as you.
Okay.
And see if we get it right. And then we'll do it for me as well.
Okay.
Sometimes it's the same question. Sometimes it's different.
Okay.
Here's what yours is going to be because we talked about reading off the pod and on the pod. If you were trying to convince someone that reading is a blast, if I came to you and said, tell me someone that would make reading fun for me.
I really think the best thing for literary authors to be doing right now, even though I'm not doing it because it's hard, is to write a literary mystery because so many people want mysteries.
I love mysteries.
But
I
that's
wrote
not what I
this.
wrote down.
I don't.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, flip it on 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, you're not the first person to recommend him.
Who's Tom Robbins?
Tom Robbins is amazing. Tom Robbins writes. There's kind of like, they're not straight ahead mysteries, but they're like books that have in them really interesting through lines where you don't actually know where he's going. He's layering things in that end up paying off down the line.
Give me a recommendation.
I'm trying to remember now what the name of that book was. I literally just read one of these.
I got so excited. It looked like you were writing George. I thought you were going to write George Saunders.
No, but you're not the first person to say that. I've not read George Saunders.
He's kind of a famous short story writer, but he writes novels now. And they're odd. They're often filled with satire.
I'm literally writing him down on the bottom of my board because
I was watching a porn.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I'm trying to see if this is funny to say on stage too. So tell me. 2 women. I'm an adult. They
Sure.
were, going down on each other.
Whatever
and
you're into, yeah.
there was a book. They had George Saunders on next to the Civil War land in bad decline. And I paused it. I'm like zooming in. I'm like, which of these women is reading George Saunders? Is it the woman going down on or the woman being gone down on? Is it the person who owns the apartment? I got so distracted. I ended up just reading. I just stopped.
Number one,
I stopped jerking off.
That is absolutely funny and absolutely we're saying on stage. Also, do you think set deck goes, okay, here's a fun one to plant?
Well, it was also weird books. It was like Malcolm Gladwell. Like somebody probably just brought a stack, but I was just like, who's reading Civil War Land in bad decline?
Malcolm Gladwell. I've read a lot of Malcolm Gladwell, but I'm just like, Malcolm Gladwell.
It was that was what made me really get out of the moment, is that I had to pause and zoom in on these titles, because I could see every title. And I was like, who is a person that's reading both Malcolm Gladwell and Civil War Land in bad decline? But we are large. We contain multitudes.
Completely. Who is my, and I'm going to give you a couple of hints for this, okay? You're going to get some hints.
Okay.
Who is my favorite current author? And here are your hints. This person has had multiple movies adapted from their books.
Okay.
And this person, I'm going to give a big hint here, but authors are tough. This person is not from the U.S.
Okay.
All these were made so far, and this is I'm still going. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, flip. Oh, Ian McEwan's a great guest. That's a wonderful guest.
Nick Hornby's, he's way more like, he's got poppy movies. Ian McEwan's just like Atonement. I don't know what other movies.
Who? Ian McEwan?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one that I read when I was in high school. I read Atonement.
Yeah.
I thought it was
great.
He
has a new one out right now, Lessons. That's supposed to be good.
But I love Nick Hornby.
I just read one of his.
Which one?
After Juliet.
Oh, Juliet Naked.
Yeah.
Loved Juliet Naked. Also made into a movie.
I can see why you like him.
I
Long
love
Way
him.
Down. I read that one.
That was made into a movie also.
Yeah. No, he's got the pulse on how to make a book into a movie.
I love him so much. The first book I read of his obviously was High Fidelity, but it was before the movie came out. That's the end of the first segment, but unless you want to hang on to it.
No, I do like
Yeah,
writing.
you can hang on to it.
I know the guy who wrote the screenplay of High Fidelity.
You do?
Good guy.
I already love him. It's not going to fit. I already love this man. I don't know him. And I love the book so much that I went.
I've actually never read that, but I've seen the movie.
The book is so much better.
So unusual that, of course, they always are. I always think some mysteries, the movie's better, because I just think some, like Gone Girl, I didn't like the book, but I like.
I didn't read
As
the
I was
book.
reading the book, I was like, this is like an outline for a movie. You don't have when people really follow that outline close, you often just don't have like the ineffable discovery of writing a good novel.
Sure.
Of reading a good novel where the author is sort of having to go back and revise. Instead, they've written this outline and are now following it to a T. So as you're reading it, I always say if the writer's discovered something on the page, the reader will read the discovery in the same sort of pleasurable way.
That's so interesting because I think sometimes I adhere to outlines too closely.
I mean, TV, you kind of have to, right? If you're doing TV and movies, I mean, that's why I'm trying to get better at TV, but I'm not very good at it. I'm so unpretentious about TV. I'm watching MILF Manor. I'm loving MILF Manor. I'm watching I watched 10 seasons of The Amazing Race during the pandemic. Went in one ear, out the other. I disassociated. Every Love Island, and
F-Boy Island,
all of it. Shout out to Brad Solnutzer. Is he a friend of the pod? He produced it.
Brad. Well, I want to get Brad on. I love Brad.
He's and I think very underrated.
Yeah,
I guess I think that about all my friends are underrated.
I've heard you say that I'm underrated, and I believe
Yeah.
you. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, I was like, I do think you're underrated. Wait, what I was gonna say is I am a little bit pretentious about books. Not pretentious. A literary novel is different than a
Pop novel.
yes. So yes, and that doesn't mean that both don't have their place in the world. And
No, of course.
James
Patterson.
but and James Patterson,
John Grisham.
pop.
Yep.
You know, it's a funny story about John Grisham. This is something a writing professor that I was in love with, this old man who had like a bad hip. I've been in love with every writing professor I've ever had, man or woman, who
So
told me I was a good
I should
writer.
have taught writing. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I think the first person who says you have it, is you love them.
Yes. I'm still waiting for that
stomach.
person.
You have it.
Yeah.
There, now you're in love with me. Sorry to your
Yeah, I was gonna say, Jess.
girlfriend.
Jess, I need an adult.
When one of my students, because I don't teach the major, I teach like GEs. And
That's awesome.
When a student is like, every semester I get a few students that I like sit them down and I'm like, I don't know if you know this or not, but you're a writer. Like you have it.
That's life changing.
I hope but then they're like, how would I make a living? And I'm like, you do what I do. You work a million jobs. You do book clubs. And they're like, that doesn't sound good. I'm going to law school.
Yeah. They're like, pass.
But I'm like, if you didn't, because you might not have known. And if you don't know, let me tell you that like you're a writer.
So amazing. There was a great movie with Gillian Jacobs about where she is a writer and then goes back to her college to give a presentation on the book. And
that sounds so good.
It's wonderful. I also just think she's so talented. I'd watch her in paint drawing. I'll give you the name after.
Yeah.
I don't remember. But the thing I was going to say before is the problem I run into, and I'm curious if you run into this because you're a reader, is when I have an author I fall in love with, Kurt Vonnegut and Nick Hornby being two of them, I will read so many of their books and then I'll stop because I don't want to run out. So I'll just stop reading their books because I don't want to.
Oh, that's so cute.
I don't want to run out of them. I was on
I mean, you assume is Kurt Vonnegut still alive?
No.
You assume Nick Hornby will keep writing them,
Yeah, but I burned through all of his and then got really sad. So
I guess I don't think that. Well, Jennifer Egan's an author where I like all her books. Zadie Smith is an author where I like all her books.
Why does Zadie Smith sound so familiar?
She's famous.
Yeah, that would do it. Well, I always think
Maybe one of the most famous. She's British, most famous contemporary fiction writers.
When I think about like famous, I think like Amy Silverberg, Zadie Smith. Is that right?
Amy Bender, one of my favorite writers, teaches at USC. Great writer of short stories. Okay, what I was going to say about John Grisham, and I think this is also. I think this sums up stand-up comedians too. There's this maybe wives' tale that somewhere where they were both teaching once, like University of Iowa has a great writers program. He was sitting with and I don't know the other author he was sitting with, maybe John Updike, somewhere like that. And John Grisham was complaining that people don't take him seriously. He's not known as a literary writer. And John Updike was complaining that he can't sell books and he doesn't make enough money. And that it's like, isn't that the truth of life? That you always want the thing that you can't have,
100%. Like, I'm trying to remember what movie it was where there's one person who has a beautiful family and their career never took off. And there's another person whose career took off and never had a family. And they're sitting over a meal. And the one whose career took off just looks and he's like, it's got to be something special to watch your kids run around.
Like, I want what you have.
And the other one goes, it's got to be something special to perform for 40,000 people. And the guy who performs for 40,000 people goes, yeah, but I'll never teach my kid to play catch.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I feel like
that's the whole thing.
Some good line I read. I never remember where I read things. It was like maybe it was
the New
Alice
York Post
Monroe or something, talking about when you're in your 30s, you have to kind of look at your life and nod along to what you've created.
I don't know if I like that. You're
Whereas,
making
like in
me
your
feel
20s,
things.
you're still at the beginning of things, and your 30s, sort of your life has taken shape, and you kind of have to nod along.
Oh my God!
But I like that. I think your life has taken a good shape.
Oh, maybe. I will say one of the quotes that I shared this with Jess on our first date. I said, because we were getting it all out there, because I was just like,
You sound like you had real mental chemistry.
I was and still am over the moon for this gal, and and we
had a sock hop.
Yeah. Well, we went to the soda fountain, and it was lovely. But I said to her, we were talking about everything, politics, religion, all that kind of stuff, and I said, as far as religion goes, there is a quote that I love from Kurt Vonnegut from a book called Sirens of Titan. And I said, and that's how I feel as far as religion goes. And that quote is, a purpose of human life, no matter who is controlling it, is to love whoever is around to be loved.
Nice.
And I said to her, I go, I am culturally Jewish. I do not go to temple. I don't do any of that. But what I will say is there's something in Judaism called Shabbat, where you have dinner on Friday nights and it separates your work week from your weekend, and you surround yourself with people you love, good bread, good wine, light some candles. And I said that to me is as close to the quote from Kurt Vonnegut as I can find, which is just about loving who's around to be loved. And as far as when you're thinking about whether or not you want to date me and see me long term, those are the values that I adhere to. And Jess was like,
you'd be a good teacher. Has anyone ever told you that?
no.
I'm
Are you just
looking at
accepting me like you just did the thing where you're like, you're a writer? Did you know that?
No, that you have a nice quality of explaining
thank you.
your thoughts and feelings.
But I remember I just like,
Maybe there's a reason why there are a lot of comedians who are, a lot of teachers who are also comedians who are also teachers who are also.
Is that true? Do you meet a
Shout
lot of
out
other
to Liz
comedians?
Blanc. Shout out to some other. I just know that it's a day job that a lot of Rachel Mack. A lot of people work.
Rachel's a teacher?
Now she lives in Wisconsin, but she used to teach junior high here in LA.
She doesn't live here anymore?
She was a baby.
What?
I know. People grow.
The pandemic literally just had things happen where you could just 2 years later have completely changed
I
your
think
life.
the quality of being a teacher is similar to qualities of being a comedian, and it's also just, I think, a job that you can do both, You're not like but professor's the easiest because
I thought it's really hard.
they're over 18, so I don't have to like watch what I say. I can be myself.
Oh, I see.
I don't teach every day. I teach like two to three times a week. I'm also adjunct, so it's much harder if you're like a 10-year track.
And I don't
like what do they call it? A
part-time?
freelancer.
Freelance.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, I don't want to sound really dumb, but like I hear the word adjunct thrown around. What exactly does that mean?
It means usually you have a PhD, but not always.
Okay.
And you're like being contracted out to teach particular classes, as opposed to like I don't work for USC on a 10-year track.
I was going to say, so you're
teach
not
anywhere. I end up teaching a lot at USC, and sometimes I'll TA for someone if they want me to.
Oh, that's
Sometimes
cool.
I'll teach my own courses. It's just like whatever I can get to make a little money.
As someone like you who
My students will be like, "When did you know you want to be a professor?" And I'm like, "I didn't, and I don't." Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's a great reason to cut me off. I was going to say, as someone like you who like has a lot of these passions, like down the road, like if you could kind of paint your ideal life in a way that you're nodding along,
in a way that what
you're able to nod along with what you've created.
Already I feel happy. This has been a nice conversation because I'm like, I do feel happy with the life I've created.
Well,
I am nodding along.
I think your life seems like pretty cool to me.
It is. I think I make much less money as an adjunct than people realize.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
I've got this is inside baseball, but I have a new manager on my team who's getting me better, higher paid out of town stand-up gigs.
Phenomenal. That's great.
And also trying to get me like creative writing gigs at colleges in like a stand-up capacity, which would be very cool. But I think I complain about teaching when in fact I do love it. And I went a few years not teaching, and then I needed money, so I dragged myself back to USC to ask anyone. And I just was like, oh, this is so fun. It is the best day job. I think writing and doing comedy can make you a little bit like self-absorbed.
Sure.
You're thinking about yourself. You're thinking about your own shit. Even
100%.
when you're writing and you're writing other characters, you're still just worried about yourself, and being able to talk to young adults about their own problems and what they're going through. It forces me to not think about myself as much.
If you, like, hypothetically speaking, if you had the big stand-up career and doing all that, do you think you ever might still like do like one
teach occasionally,
like a one day workshop?
Of course, yeah. No, for
like
sure.
I'm touring in Iowa, and I'm going to go to University of Iowa, and we're going to do a 3-hour workshop about creative writing.
No, for sure. And I also just I like the idea of like mentoring, especially like young women.
I was gonna say I could use one, but yeah, no. Yeah, young women too, or me, whoever.
No, I feel like I'm surprised you've never thought about teaching. I feel like you know.
No, I have two of my best friends. I'm still incredibly close to my best friends from high school, and two of my best friends both were going in completely opposite of teaching directions.
Mm-hmm.
My buddy was a senior in college, thinking about becoming a lawyer. My other friend had already become a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
This one was thinking about becoming a lawyer, and started tutoring underprivileged kids in the Bronx, and we're all from New York, and just goes, oh no, this is what I meant to do.
Yeah.
And he started
yeah,
teaching.
I never set out to teach. Even when I was getting a PhD, I was getting a PhD because this creative writing PhD, they were paying you to write. And I was like, and not a lot of money, but I was like, perfect. Yeah. And then they were, of course, like, well, part of why you get paid is you have to teach. And then I was like, oh, I have to teach, And then, of course, you get to be the boss. You're like performing. If I say something and the kids laugh, I like write it down. They all watch my stand-up sets now. Like, they're adults. It's USC.
You had a very funny bit, and we'll get to the last segment in a split second, but you had a very funny bit where I feel like wasn't it like a student of yours hit on you or something?
I
don't want to like make you tell your jokes.
No, this is on Comedy Central, but he wrote a story about wanting to fuck his teacher.
Dear Lord.
And he plays for the Seattle Seahawks, or did.
Did you ever think to tell him like, hey, my biggest problem with your writing is your lack of subtlety? I mean,
I was like laughing. I think that's part of my attitude towards it is like, I don't know how to say this. I don't make myself immune to them. They still make me laugh.
Sure.
They still, and like, I don't take it too seriously. I don't take myself too seriously. I don't take them too seriously.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a bit too informal. Maybe some of my colleagues who were in a different place than me, but when they do stuff that makes me laugh, I'm laughing. I'm just like,
that's amazing.
Yeah. I have a joke now about, which is kind of based on reality, but not, of course, what's reality and what's made up.
I was going to say, who really, there's a fuzzy line. Who cares?
A student didn't have my email address and couldn't figure out how to turn in a paper. And he commented on my stand-up sets on Instagram and was like, haha, very funny. How do I turn in the paper? I'm 2 weeks late.
I love that student.
Pretty much what, and I was like, thank you for saying I'm funny. You upload it to Blackboard, this program.
Oh, we used to use Blackboard.
They still use Blackboard.
Oh,
Other schools use Canvas. I'm so bad at technology. That's the worst part about teaching right now.
How are you bad at technology?
Stand-up.
You're young. How are you bad at technology? I think we're about the same age.
Are we young? We're in our 30s. That doesn't seem young to me.
It's youngish. Are you ready for our final segment?
Oh, yes.
It's the lightning round, so it's 5 questions. They're fast questions. They don't have to be fast answers.
Got it.
You can draw on the board while we're doing this.
I was going to draw a wiener dog, my favorite shape. No, that's okay.
So question 1, what is a favorite ritual of yours? So mine is like brewing tea. What would you say is one of yours?
I was going to say masturbating. That's
it can
stupid.
Be. That's fine.
Let me think.
I don't think so.
Yeah, especially when I have a deadline. I told Dr. Barbara how much pornography I've been consuming.
Is Dr. Barbara like, well, maybe less?
She was like, people do different things to procrastinate.
Dr. Barbara's a saint.
She really is a saint. I like a long shower.
Love.
And like to stay, like chill in my bathrobe.
Also
for a
lovely.
long time. And I'm trying to do gratitude lists every evening.
I am trying to do that. I can't tie together enough days of doing it. I always drop.
You need a buddy. I've been doing it with a friend who lives in New York. We send each other our gratitude
Do you
lists.
just text it?
Yeah. Sometimes she'll take a picture of her writing one, but I text it.
Does it help?
I think it does because I think especially doing it the same time every day, like doing it in the evening makes me the next day. Subconsciously, I think you end up searching for things to be grateful for so that at night you'll have stuff to write down. And I think it changes your mindset because I'm looking around being like grateful, as opposed to the
I love that.
Opposite.
Love that. Okay, question 2. What is a running bit you have with a friend or partner that makes you laugh?
Only 5 things.
Only 5?
You need. Okay, I have a lot with my boyfriend. I think I pretend like he wants to fuck his dog.
Hold on.
He's so in love with this dog. He wants to fuck this dog.
And you just say it when other people are around?
Oh yeah, and I put up pictures of the two of them like looking deeply into each other's eyes. He would suck this dog's dick before he got his dog, and he loves his dog. His sister had a dog who I was like, you guys are having an affair. This like big female poodle who would climb on top of him and like make out.
Big poodle?
Yeah, and I have all these pictures of them looking like they're like having an affair.
Oh my god.
He does a thing I think is funny with my vibrator where he pretends to knock himself out.
I don't know why I find that. I find that very funny.
That's the funniest thing he's ever done. Yeah,
he sounds pretty funny.
No, he's great.
Not being a comedian, he sounds
he's
very
funny. Yeah, this vibrator broke a long time ago, but it was one of those big. It was like a cheap one on Amazon, and like a big one. And he would be like,
"How did we meet this guy?" By the way, quick side note.
Raya.
It's almost always Hinge. Outside shot, it's Bumble. Raya is a rare one.
Yeah, and he doesn't know how he got on it because he does work in sports. I think they thought he was like a professional athlete, but he doesn't have a lot of, he's almost no internet presence, which I like about him.
Yeah, I was going to say, you probably like that. It's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Luddite Club over there.
Except he's never read a book. We've like nothing in common.
Dear Lord. Question 3, can you do an impression of one or both of your parents? And it doesn't have to be a good impression.
Yes. Okay, I have a joke right now where my dad can't do anything without my mom. Okay.
Yeah.
My joke right now is his 2 favorite movies, and he's such an anxious Jew. His 2 favorite movies are The Devil Wears Prada and Taken. Liam Neeson.
Yeah, no, I
He
know.
thinks of himself as like, he's like, if you ever got taken, like I would go get you. And my joke is, if I got taken, my dad would turn to my mom and be like, Nancy, do I have any special skills? Can you go to Romania and get our daughter? I'll wait here. One time, my mom at work, working full time, and my dad was at home, and a bird flew into the house, and he called her. He had he bothered her at work to be like, Nancy, there's a bird in the house.
She's saving lives, Larry.
And my mom was just like, open a window, and he didn't. She came home and he like had a pet bird named Larry Bird.
No, he did not. Your father, yes. I can't.
And he'll also call me, like interrupt me. I'm teaching, I'm doing something important, and he calls me over and over again. I think it's something important, and then he's like, what's the place with the meatballs I like? And I'm like, what is happening?
Dad, it's Bay Cities. Let it go.
Probably like Buca de Beppo. He doesn't have like good.
Stop.
Well, I'm from an area that's only like chain restaurants. I'm a savory gal. So when other people are, now you have me saying gal. When other people are getting dessert, I'm like, I'll take the samosas.
Oh my God, you and Jess, you would be best friends.
Often my favorite people are like comedians' girlfriends.
She's the best.
And
She's
sometimes
much better
I'm just
than me.
like, escape.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a good comedian, but I've seen some amazing women that I'm like, how did he trick you? They're saw at the rec room a guy bomb, and then his hot girlfriend rubbing his back as he eats chicken wings. As he eats chicken wings after bombing.
First show I did after the pandemic, Jess came up to me and I go, it was first show in a year and a half. I go, wow, like I could still do it. How do you think I did? She goes, you rely a little bit on crowd work because I could tell you were nervous and you rushed a lot of your punchlines. You don't have enough faith in the audience anymore because you don't have enough faith in yourself. And I think you need to regrow that, get that back to where you want to be, and then you'll be fine. And I was like, I would have just loved to, you were great. Would have been excellent right about
She's
there.
giving it to you straight. And do you like that?
I do.
You like being given it straight.
Let me tell you this. Was it hard to hear? Yes. Was everything she said correct? And did I also need to hear it? 100%.
Okay. All right. And also, she's right in that don't ask if you don't want to know.
Yeah, trust me. She reminds me of that every day. Question 4.
How do I do if you don't want the...
Yeah, she gives me the heat all the time. Question 4, have you ever experienced imposter syndrome? And if so, is there a particular moment that kind of resonates for you?
All the time. I mean, definitely trying to write a novel. I'm just like, will I do it? Can I do it? I'm a short story writer. I'm not a novelist. I don't know what I'm doing.
That's so interesting to me. I find you to be very... what would the word I would use be?
So nervous.
No, very...
demented.
Impressively communicative, and also, there's an expression people use in improvisation a lot, which is playing to the height of your intelligence.
Mm.
And I think that you do that in a way that is very friendly, digestible, and I think like that's the kind of thing you look for in an author. So that's
thank you.
Interesting that you
I
don't.
think in stand-up I only started doing that more recently.
Really?
I think my earlier stuff is pretty dumb and blue. I'm still blue, but I think I've just because I've gotten more comfortable. Like your girlfriend said, I trust the audience more to like be with me.
Yeah, but they often are. I'm sure.
No, but I mean, I think that's true in the last
like
4 years. Now I've been doing stand up. I think like 8 years. I think in the first 4, I was way more like, you got to hit them with these hard, dumb punchlines.
I gotta get it.
Especially you go to places like Madhouse.
I mean,
they make you think that is what you need.
A lot of those audiences want it.
Or they don't like a longer story. And then I think the longer you do it and the more comfortable you get in your voice, right? Then suddenly you're like, oh, I can be myself. I trust myself. Just what she said.
I
keep saying, is she upstairs?
No, she's downstairs, but I do love that you keep pointing up.
I feel like she's upstairs.
No, the upstairs is lofted, so she'd hear us real clearly if she were upstairs.
I think when I first started teaching, I probably felt it a little bit, but no longer.
Interesting. Okay.
And I was all dressed like so, like, in like a blazer. Like I didn't want them to know that I was nervous. And now I'm like in a backwards baseball cap.
I would prefer a teacher like that.
Well, and you just realize like I do know enough, and I know a lot more than they do. I also got a PhD in that time when I'd begun teaching, and
yeah, I was gonna say Lynn told me that you two were in the same master's program, and then you got a PhD, and she goes, I went into copywriting, and I was like, oh, stop. I was like, that's
no, and Lynn's so smart and a great writer.
The final question for you, it's typically what's your favorite tea or comfort, but you don't drink tea, so what's your favorite comfort?
I grew up in a family that did a lot of like eating when you were anxious.
Jewish. Yeah.
Jewish. Love a soup. I also like a fried food when I'm feeling a mashed potato, you know.
Ooh, I live for mashed potatoes.
I like an iPhone game. I'm just thinking comfort. I think I like, what do I do when I have anxiety? And I love an iPhone game.
Like?
Well, during the pandemic, I got to level like 875 of Dr. Mario World, and then on my phone, and then they ended the game, which was like, I masturbate too when I'm anxious.
Sure.
We've already brought that up.
Well, I do think that a lot of people do that, so you're probably in good company.
Yeah, and I think I read. Books have certainly saved my life at different points. So has Dr. Barbara. Never has my life been threatened, and twice on this podcast I've said that things have saved my life.
The very final question, this is not our lightning round, but just because you have this knowledge, throw out a good book that people should read from an author that most people maybe don't know. Can we give a little love to an author?
Sure. If you haven't read short stories before and you're thinking of being into that, I would say Amy Bender's Willful Creatures.
Excellent.
That's one I always recommend. Yeah, I'm going to go with that.
Love it. Well, thank you so much. I hope you had fun.
Thank you.
We did it.
And I love tea now.
That's the ending right there. That was Amy Silverberg. You can follow her on Instagram and Twitter at Amy Silverberg. You can follow her on TikTok at Amy Silverberg Rules. We'll be back next week, so until then, happy steeping.
My dad played for the University of Boulder basketball.
That's so cool.
But he was on acid and he kept showing up with one shoe and they kicked him off the team. That's like his claim to fame.